Joe,
Are you ready?
are you ready?
No, I said, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Dude, episode 3.
Episode 3, sir.
This is a special one today, man.
This is a first.
It's a very first, and it's kind of wild how this happened. So we had a listener reach out to us, and we got some good insight from a listener, and so he's got some good stories he's going to bring to our show today.
All right, well, I look forward to see what he's got to say.
All right, well, let's welcome in Miles.
I go ham on a bullet beat combined to Il Brio. Called the homies up and make tracks with my people. Cause when we join forces, we know that he is with us. We talk to him and keep a strong witness. So when I say I'm gonna take you to church, I really take you to church.
We got our first special guest today on the show. We got Miles joining us. Miles, how you doing today?
What's up, Joe? Hey, Curtis. Thanks for
Welcome
having me.
aboard,
Doing
Miles.
great.
Great. Well, man, I got your email the other day, and you had some interesting topics that we'd love to hear about here on We Stand Corrected. Kind of compared to like our journey with Zapata Falls and the sand dunes, and kind of stood out was your 1,100-mile trek you took through the Mid-Eastern deserts.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. If you like, I'll just dive right in. I've got an adventure buddy. His name is Wells Jones. He's a Navy X rescue parachute specialist. He was the sixth man to parachute in Antarctica, as a matter of fact. And he's also an entertainment professional. And after 9/11, a couple of years after 9/11, still kind of hadn't figured it out yet, right? It's like, what was that all about? Who were they? What'd they do? Why'd they do that? And I had read a few books, but it wasn't really getting me there. And I read this book called Seven Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence. Now, you guys may know, it's like back in the day, there was a movie called Lawrence of Arabia. Look it up. Phenomenal movie, right?
I bet
Well, that
Curtis
was
is
peaceful.
familiar with that.
Curtis,
I've
you
heard
got
of
that
it.
one?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Yeah, it won the Oscar. Peter O'Toole, David Lean produced it. It is an epic, but it basically tells the story of this British man who settled into what was called Palestine at the time. Originally, this guy, T.E. Lawrence, was a cartographer. He drew maps in the desert because the British figured, yeah, there's going to be a war here pretty soon. Sure enough, there was a war, and bingo, he knew where everything was. And he also spoke the language. So he was pretty much appointed to be the emissary between the British, who were really interested in the Suez Canal at that point, right? That was trade through the Mediterranean to the Orient, Far East. And they didn't know oil was there yet, by the way. But they assigned Lawrence to basically have the Arabs revolt against the Ottoman Turks. That's who owned that whole joint, what's today called the Middle East. And it is this phenomenal book that he wrote, lost once, and then wrote again. And to this day, you look at military personnel in the Middle East, what do they have in their backpack? They have a 100-year-old book in their backpack. It's Seven Pillars of Wisdom, right? It does such a phenomenal job of telling the story of the people and the thinking of, loosely, let's call it Arabia, right? Which is now Saudi Arabia, sort of Jordan, a little bit Syria, Iraq, Iran. Lebanon is called the Levant. And anyways, this book really tells the story. So I was reading it, and my friend Wells was reading at the same time. We didn't know it. So, the only way to really figure this out is to go. It's like, all right. Well, the interesting thing about the book is because the Arab Revolt traveled along a path, we had the chance to do so as well. And so I was lucky enough to get a invitation to speak for a prior book that I had published on small business entrepreneurship. I got to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. As a matter of fact, I just showed my daughter the photo of me, shaved head, beard, galoped, etc. And I spoke about the book, and they said, okay, welcome. Basically, you're in the tent, right? what else do you want to do? Well, we'd like to hike 1,100 miles starting in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which is the port town that serves Mecca and Medina, the holy cities. And they said to us, sure, great. And we set foot from Jeddah, went north along the Red Sea to Awaj and a place called Yanbu, which was supposed to be where Lawrence had his first headquarters, right, when he was fighting the Turks. And a wonderful story in the book. I'm not going to get into it right now, but we ended up with a tile from that house, which we carried with us along the way. Up to Aqaba, there's a wonderful desert called Wadi Rum in Jordan. It looks like Dune. Have you guys seen Dune 2? Dune, like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
okay, so Dune, Star Wars. If they weren't shot there, they should have been. Right? It just okay. Yeah, you're on a Star Wars set. So it wasn't foot there; it was camel because it's dangerous to be on foot. The top temperature is 129, and so.
What did you guys do to prepare for that, though? I mean, you're talking 130 degrees. What does that look like?
It was intense. People say that Wells and I are intense in our preparation, but we never think so. So among the things that we spent time on, we'll go, of course, physical conditioning, but also kidnap evasion, right? Personal security. We were actually trained by a Sandhurst graduate who does security for the royal family in England, to basically recognize what's in front of you, behind you, decides what your threats are, what your way out is. And so that was keeping our eyes open and downfield was really, really important. And we crossed borders by foot. We'd crossed borders 31 times by foot. And these borders don't really see a lot of people roll up with a backpack on foot from America.
Yeah,
right?
from the American guy crossing it anyways.
Right? You can imagine the questions that you get. But the experience of doing that, and after Wadi Rum, we went to the Syrian border, went to Damascus, at a place called Krak Chevalier, which T.E. Lawrence had talked about in his book as well. And then back through Jordan into Israel over the King of Zayed Bridge. Of course, we had been 27 days in the desert by then. The Israelis had a few questions to ask us, needless to say. Security checkpoint we passed through.
What are they asking? Can I ask? What kind of questions?
I'll give you a few. There's a scene in the book that's probably one of the most intense scenes, and it is the interrogation by a quite attractive but very menacing border guard. So okay, first of all, are you Americans? Yes. How long have you been on the other side, on the West Bank? Where did you go? Saudi. What'd you do there? See friends. You have friends in Saudi? We do now. Right. And remember that tile they told you about? We got in Yanbu. We only had one backpack. Between each of us had a backpack, right? Arcteris, and wonderful packs, by the way. Not a sponsor, but man, they're good. So putting a tile in your backpack at the beginning of a trek, it's like, man, this better be worth it, right? We even had to break it up into little pieces so that we could reconstruct it later when we got back home. But they were convinced that it was plastique explosives, right? So you can imagine the conversation around, what's this? Where did you get it? Well, again, it's Saudi. Who gave it to you? Why did you? Did they know? Did they know you were coming here? You name it, right? Every page of our passport, literally every thread of our backpack. We had something called we had a BGAN transmitter, which was basically it's a satellite device. It's like a one-shot satellite device. Looks like a laptop, but it has no keys on the keyboard. What is this? It's like just don't, you open it up, looks like computers, no keys.
Yeah. Oh man.
What's going on here? A solar panel that rolled up and folded and put in your pocket, right? That was our power. But the good one was the PLB. So it seems like a dude show, perhaps, that I'm on at the moment. So have you ever seen the scene in Spinal Tap where he goes through security and he's got a cucumber in his pants? Well, PLB is basically looks like somewhere between a cucumber and a zucchini, but if it's pulled and it's not shut off in 15 minutes, our insurance policy launched a team to come track us to wherever we were. It's basically a locator beacon that sent a signal to, let's see, OSHA. It's the people that run the satellites. So we walked around with that in our shorts, especially at the borders, because that's the place, right? And of course, it's Wells's character that got the full pat down with the PLB from the female security guard, and that was really good. But yeah, I mean, we never activated it, but it gave us some sense of security that if the shit went down, they'd know our last position within 5 minutes. Yeah. Right.
That's interesting because I mean, I myself wouldn't find myself over there because I'd probably be a lot worse off than how you made it through there.
At some point, the thought had to run through your head, am I ever going to get back stateside again?
Yeah. We didn't have like desperation isolation. I've been arrested and detained in other third world countries, but actually later I was detained and interrogated in Saudi, but that was a different story at a different time. It wasn't on this trek. All right, I beg the question, right? We did end up working for the royal family. I did end up having a Iqama, which is a Saudi residency card. It's relatively difficult to get unless you know the prince. That's relatively easy. And I used it upon exit from the country. Now, I used it upon entry from the country, but didn't use it upon exit. And it flipped them out, right? Because in their minds, Saudi citizen moving back and forth, and now he's slamming down an American passport to get out. Back in the back room, they hold the plane through it. But I did get out of it in a somewhat of a tricky way. It was a long interrogation, over an hour. Wells was waiting for me outside. It's like, this is not going well. And finally at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Now the interesting thing about in Saudi, they have different hours, right? They got Ramadan, they starve during daylight and then they eat during night, etc. So they just flip their calendar, they flip their times, and they'll just work all night because they can't, they can eat. So I knew that the prince that was my guy was up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I just, in front of the guard that was questioning me, I go look, there's only one guy you need to talk to. And it's ringing! You want to talk to him? And tell him why I've been detained? He's going to answer in a second. I was on the place and detained. On that trek, on the physical human trek that Wells and I did, I didn't really have, Curtis, I didn't really have the, am I ever going to get home, right? Like bound and gagged and hostage, something like that. But there was the, am I going to die here and now, right? Because, especially at borders, you see a decent amount of Kalashnikovs, AK-47s, tasers, etc. Oh, yeah. And they wave them around like this. Now, Wells and I had this, lottery game going on because a lot of the clips would have, green tape or red tape. Now, you can't really see the firing pin of the Kalashnikov from, the wrong side of the barrel. So we thought, all right, green means they don't have anything. Red means bad, right? But we were never able to test that. And yeah, so that's when both of us had multiple experiences like that where we thought, this could be over just like that.
Was that one of the hardest border crossings you've been through on that journey? Or in general?
But two come to in general. Yes, the border crossing south to north, going from Jordan to Syria. Now remember, Syria was on the brink of civil war. Iraq was just cooling down. We were, a handful of clicks away from Suicide Alley, which is the highway that moves, in between Baghdad and so, it's a lot of crappy stuff goes on there. And we were just trying to move on through. But more importantly, we didn't do it for shits and giggles, right? We really did it because we wanted to understand the people and their thinking. And the only way to do that was just like to experience it in person. And
was it just like a whim that you guys wanted to go out there for the experience, or?
I'd have to say we didn't. I mean, it all looks good in the rearview mirror, right? Like, oh, that's why you went. What a brilliant idea of it. Like, in reality, we didn't really know. We were curious. We'd done some homework. We had access, and we had the courage to go do it, but we didn't know what the heck we were doing.
So you were just going out there just with a little bit of study. Obviously you had to do some training to get through there, but it was just kind of an adventure you took on that you wanted to take on.
Right. But it had so it's an adventure, but Wells and I like to say it's an adventure with purpose, right? Hey, if you climbed Mount Everest last week, right? Like, oh, yeah, good for you, Joe. But like, all right, you're the 3,347th guy to do that, and the first one with a purple hat on, right? Whatever. But there's no, okay, what's next, right? What came from that? And so we really try to find things, and since then we've done several others in different places where it has a purpose. And the purpose was come home, tell a story that allows other people to be entertained, and then they get to the end of the book and they go like, holy shit, I learned something. I say shit a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We got cuss it out, man.
So anyways, my father since passed away. His name's Arthur. His famous phrase, and that was my desire for the book, was to get him to read it and say, "Holy shit, I did not know that." Right, and so it's, to me, I think it's a very entertaining book. The reviews say it's a very entertaining book. Two guys with bromance going through all these different countries, learning these things. But in the end, you realize, oh, wow, I learned something. And that is what we want to deliver to people. So a greater understanding of the people and culture and motivations in the Middle East.
That's intriguing to me. And so the book you were talking about is A Line in the Sand. Is that the correct name of it? Is this the book you're talking about?
That's right.
Oh, this adventure is kind of what led to that, and then more about the book, right? Did you create these characters? Is that what I'm gathering is in the book?
Yeah, to be honest, from a security standpoint, the characters had to be created. So Magnus and Finn are based on a true story of Miles and Wells, but there's some plausible deniability in there. The history's history, and it's darn accurate. The experiences are based on a true story, that's for sure. But in order to get back and observe T.E. Lawrence in 1918 during the Arab Revolt, used a time travel device, which to this day I believe qualifies us as fiction, not as nonfiction. So yes, we do hop around between 2006 and 1918.
Sounds like a great book. I'd like to give it a read.
Yeah, well, I hope you will. Also, there's an Audible version, which is narrated by a guy by the name of Eduardo Ballerini, who is phenomenal. I think his words, samples up there on the website. I think his words spoken sounds so much better than mine written, and they're the same words. But his voice is just butter.
That's awesome. And then with this, I saw you you mentor a couple kids. Is that what I?
Yeah, well, I have a couple of kids, 11 and 13 at the moment, and so that's job one for me. And what I find is that what I learn from bringing these kids up and mentoring them and teaching them about leadership and development and the rest is very similar to the entrepreneurs that I work with, right? So I like to say, like, I mentor a couple of kids and a handful of entrepreneurs, and the similarities are striking.
Sometimes the kids are probably easier.
Yeah, you know, it's Picasso who said, like, it took half my life to learn how to paint like a child. So I'm a technology investor, right? So I look at how the kids interact with technology, and at this point, I'm learning a heck of a lot from them and how they use things than I learned from my contemporaries that are still printing things out.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of that, you said tech founder as well.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of starting and building and selling 3 digital media businesses, about 1,100 employees. So that was a lot of fun. It was a good run. I just, together with my partner from Hollywood, Scott Carlin, bought a 4th one, which answers the big question in America. No, not that one. The other one, which is, what are we going to watch tonight? Right? It's this great little app called Relay where people can send their movie recommendations to each other, which you do anyways in front of the water cooler or whatever, but this is an app that just takes care of it all for you. So
You created this app? Or helped create it?
Someone else had the idea for it. Scott and I recognized it and have built it out since then.
What is the name of the app?
It's called Relay, or Eelay, like a reel of. If you just, I'll drop that in the chat. And you can put
Yeah,
in the show
do it.
notes if you want
We
to.
can get that out there too.
I'm even going to, you know what? I'm going to drop you. You know what I'll do? I'll do it by text, but I will drop you a watch list for fans of Lawrence of Arabia, right? Like everything we were just talking about. I will give you 5 movies that you ought to watch if you were interested in this after reading the book.
Absolutely, man.
It's a deal.
Absolutely, yeah. Send that text and I'll check this out. I'm interested about the book because I like a good Audible, good audiobook as well. It's interesting, and I appreciate the info and the stories. I mean, those are always welcome here. So if you ever got any more, you're always welcome to come back on with us. So
That sounds cool. I'm working on another one in Havana, Cuba right now, so that'll be the next one.
So you're working on going on that one still?
I've already been on that adventure. I've finished with the first draft. As Hemingway said, I don't write like Hemingway, but Hemingway said all first drafts are shit. So that one's done. My first draft is done, about halfway through the second. I'll probably be done by Christmas.
Well, I'm going to look forward to
Very
looking
nice.
that up and checking that adventure out for sure. But anyways, Miles, man, we appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you so much
hopefully
for
we
your
can
time.
Guys.
Yeah, I hope we can get you on again to hear about this Cuba story.
Sounds cool.
All right, man.
Enjoy the book. Let me know what you think of the Audible. Curtis, Joe, thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
for having
thank
me on.
you. Send us that text too, and we'll check out that app and the movies and everything, man.
Sounds cool. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Yeah, have a good
Thanks,
night.
Miles.
See you.